Hello and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. There's all kinds of family. We chose this one. This is episode 323, Furious 7, Lap 13. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe, too. And this episode is brought to you by Drift Innovations. Their Ghost X camera brings together the sleek drift form factor, no fuss operation, and their longest battery life to date to let you capture the ride in crisp 1080 Full HD. Shout out to Drift Innovations.
Well, shout out to Drift Innovations and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever with us today to talk about Furious 7, which I have a new way of selling, of marketing this movie, which we'll get to later. Especially given, I'll tease it, but we'll get there later. But with us today is voice actor and podcaster Matt Delhauer. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Joe and Joe.
Welcome to the show. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I've popped up every so often all over the network, and I finally get to be on The Big Show.
Whoa.
Oh,
landed the big account.
That's a compliment.
Yeah.
Matt and I went to college together, and we've stayed sort of in touch, but then I would see him pop up, or I guess more accurately hear him pop up like he was saying on other shows. I'm just like, hey, do you like the Fast and Furious? And he was like, yes, I do. And so here we are, making it happen, talking about Furious 7.
It only took until lap 13.
Well, to be fair, in your defense, we did not have guessed the first one, so we only bypassed you 11 times. So it's totally fine.
Well, no,
totally
and that's perfectly
reasonable.
fine. Also, just I'm more just absolutely stunned by the wherewithal for you guys to be doing this over and over and over again.
That's how
13 times now.
That's how it works. Yeah.
I don't want to show you how many notes I took for the 13th time we've watched this movie. The 16th time I think I've seen it, or maybe more ever. The 13th we've watched it for the podcast. I took so many notes. I mean, it's just, I don't know how we keep finding things to talk about, but we keep doing.
I got some fun
forever.
stuff, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I made it like a mission for me. I did not go back to listen to any of the other Furious 7 episodes that you guys did. Because, I don't want that coloring my reaction to things.
I feel you.
And also because I know it's going to be one of those things where I'm going to go back to one of those episodes and something that I wanted to bring up is going to already have been spoken about. And I'm going to be like, I don't even know why I'm here then.
Well, you know what, Matt? That's exactly our thing every single episode, except we don't remember that we're saying it again for the second time.
Nice.
Until somebody writes in and says, yeah, you guys talked about that.
You guys talked about that on lap 6, you idiots.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, to put our own shame on the back burner for now, what is your history with these franchises, these movies in particular? What was the first one you saw? Did you see these in theaters from the start? Like, what is your history with the Fast and the Furious?
So the first time I saw any of these movies, it was the first Fast and the Furious.
Okay.
Which I saw back when I was in high school around like 2003. So I didn't get to it right when it came out.
Close.
It was a couple
You're in the
years.
ballpark.
But yeah, that was the first one that I saw, and being the pretentious high school wannabe filmmaker nerd, my first reaction was just like, yeah, I already saw Point Break, thanks.
Exactly.
But as time went on, I don't think I saw Too Fast, Too Furious for the longest time. Because at that point I was 16 and was like, yeah, I'm not going to watch this dumb car movie. I did see Tokyo Drift like the year it came out though.
Okay.
I don't remember why. Because I had absolutely no affinity for the series, but I remember I saw that one the year it came out. I probably did because I was like, well, it's a whole new cast, maybe it's something different. And I remember really enjoying Tokyo Drift when I saw it.
Did you like Better Luck Tomorrow? Just following this vein of you saying, like, being a wannabe film nerd self-described, like, were you like, oh, Justin Lin, Better Luck Tomorrow?
Oh, yeah. I did like Better Luck Tomorrow. I mean, this was also at the point where, like, right around the time where I'd first seen the movie Brick.
Yep.
So I'm now in my indie film is the way to go.
Exactly.
Mindset for the next 10 years. The one that really won me over, and to this day is still my favorite in the entire series, was Fast 5.
Yep.
And so at that point, I was like, "This is great. This is fun. I loved every moment of this, and I was in since then, and I have since filled in the ones that I've missed on the back end."
Perfect. So with that in mind, I asked you to rank these movies. Can you please hit us with your rankings either from favorite to least favorite? We already know Fast 5 is number one.
That's what I thought.
Or bottom to top, whichever way you would prefer.
All right, let me go pulling that up because I had to go putting this list together today, and I'll tell you now, it definitely was difficult. I had a lot of these get moved around several times before now.
Okay. It does, yeah.
So I'll go least favorite to favorite.
Okay. And now the question is, are you also ranking Hobbs and Shaw, or are you not? Because we typically do, but
I did not.
Okay.
It's okay. Loud.
Just figured, if you wanted me to, I would. You probably would have told me to, Joey.
Well, I leave this open to interpretation for the guests.
It's actually more curious
about people,
to see if you did or not.
I am one where I do consider Hobbs and Shaw a spin-off film, so I don't I don't put it in the main canon.
All right, then hit us with the rankings in the main canon 1 to 10, or
Least
like
favorite.
You're saying, 10 to 1.
10 to 1. So in 10th place, I've got F9, The Fast Saga.
Okay, yeah.
9th place, The Fate of the Furious.
Okay.
Next, Fast X.
Okay, that's low. Yeah, low.
Followed by Fast and Furious, also known as Fast and Furious 4.
Fast and Furious, man.
There you go.
Yeah.
Next, middle of the pack, The Fast and the Furious.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Followed by, next up, Tokyo Drift.
Nice.
Fast and Furious 6.
There you go. Okay.
Too Fast, Too Furious.
Way high. Really high.
And I have my reasons that I can
That's
give.
awesome. Yeah. No.
Furious
some
7
people
and then
love it.
Fast 5.
Okay.
You know what's really strange is that our last guest on Fast and Furious episode, also named Matt, also had Tokyo Drift 5, also had Fast and Furious 7, also had Fast 5 1, also had Fate of the Furious 9, and also
Insane.
had F9 10. That's just it's a
I would
thing.
never. I would never have noticed that if you didn't keep them in order.
Look. I was gonna say we have our monthly meetings, and every so often we have to compare notes. So and it's we have to have that kind of consensus.
The only real difference between you two, like everything else, like there's basically an adjustment of 2. The only difference of note is that you have this one that we're talking about today at number 2, and he's got it at number 8. So you're like, this is
wow.
You're like,
okay,
Matt's got it, right? But like everything else is either identical or just 2 off, which is
that's
wild.
why
that's very funny.
Yeah,
very strange.
Damn.
And he also had Hobbs and Shaw dead last. So it sounds like, if you're considering just regular Fast and Furious, you might spin a lot off at the bottom. But
I don't know. I don't know if I was putting Hobbs and Shaw in here, I don't think it would be the bottom of the list.
Okay.
It is a very fun superhero buddy cop movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a different realm, I feel, than your street racers turned international spies concept. But I think it's got enough fun and enough of the charisma of the actors to carry it that I would put it.
Sure.
I would put it a little above. I'd put a little below, like maybe middle of the pack.
Gotcha. I mean, you are very fair in that it is riding hard on that charisma.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's just like
Yes.
you like these guys, and you are going to like this movie because you like these guys.
I will tell you now, the thing that got me in that seat, funny enough, wasn't Hobbs, wasn't Shaw, it was Idris Elba.
Yeah. We love Idris too. We really do.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I feel bad for the fact that so many people write Hobbs and Shaw off, that means Idris Elba does not get to be part of the main Fast and Furious, the Fast Saga, as it were.
I'm more bummed that Vanessa Kirby
I
does not,
knew you
but
were
I
going to
mean,
say this.
But I also,
Okay. No, I get that, I get that.
I would love Idris to be there too. Yes.
Because I want that moment where Idris shows up and he's at the barbecue and he's got the Corona, and now he's like, you guys bested me, I'm in the family.
Oh, you want him not only back in the franchise, but like in the
Oh
family.
yeah,
Okay.
no, he's look. If things fall out between Vin and Dwayne again, you bring in Idris Elba.
I think John Cena kind of took that spot though, right? Like,
Yeah, but now he's dead. Sorry, spoilers for anyone who.
No,
people,
not
I mean,
because of
if you're
spoilers.
listening to this
It's a
show.
contentious point.
No, I know.
Is John Cena dead?
Look, I've
or
also
not?
I've also seen the franchise. Nobody in these movies is dead.
Although we did have, and I want to bring this up because I want to keep this thing going, that Chrissy Shackelford earlier this lap. Congratulations, Chrissy, on staying strong and during the strike and now back at work.
Yeah, congratulations.
She said that she has a theory that if Dom does not see a character die, that character's not dead. If Dom sees a character die,
They are
because we're
officially
seeing
dead.
the franchise through his eyes. He has got
And
God's
he
eyes, so he doesn't really see.
He watched John Cena die.
Now that brings up a thing that I wanted to touch on from my notes. That brings up a wonderful concept then for me.
What?
Okay.
Is that Dom does not see Tony Jaa die because he's fighting Brian.
Yes.
And I personally feel that Tony Jaa did not get nearly enough screen time as a villain in this movie.
Fair.
And would be a wonderful villain to have come back.
You're not going to get any arguments from us on this show.
Absolutely not. It's weird, right? Like, once Chrissy said it, like, now you start to think about it, and you're like, yeah, she makes a very good point.
Sounds true.
Yeah.
Before we talk more about this movie and Tony Jaa and anything else you want to cover, we have a couple questions for you. What's exciting is that 2 of these 3 are about this movie or inspired by this movie in particular. But if you listen to other episodes about about the main Fast and Furious movies, you might have heard these questions already. So there's no wrong answers to these. 2 of them, we just genuinely don't have answers. We might never have answers, and we just want to get everyone's opinion that we possibly can. But first off, in the first movie, if you'll remember, take us back to 2001, before you started watching the movies, Brian and Mia doing dishes in the kitchen. Vince comes in drunk to harass Brian. Mia belittles Vince and asks him what the name of that restaurant is. He says, Cha Cha Cha, and she says, great, Brian, you can take me there. But the way that she elicits this answer from Vince is that she says, you know the table, you know the place, the wood tables, the red candles, the picadillo, the food all over the place. So now, Matt, if we say to you, thank you so much for being on the show. You were a hit with the audience. We reached 2 million downloads. Everyone loves this. We are now millionaires because of this one single episode. Let us take you out to a restaurant to say thank you. We are going to bring you to this place. You're going to love it. It's got these wood tables. It's got these red candles. It's got this picadillo. It's got this food all over the place. 3 of those things, very visual, very easy to visualize. Food all over the place makes no sense. If we described a restaurant as having food all over the place, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? What does your mind conjure up?
I mean, the phrasing "food all over the place" makes it sound like things have been thrown against walls and tables have not been bussed.
Okay.
So I am getting a visual in my mind that this is a small local place that has maybe 2 people working there. One's the chef, the other's like the hostess, waitress, whatever it might be. Wood tables means they cannot afford tablecloths. Red candles are nice. That doesn't. That goes neither here nor there. That's ambiance. I get it. But yeah, I don't know what picadillos is.
Picadillo, tomato.
Oh,
yeah, like a little sauce.
Okay. It's not an appetizing phrasing that is put forth. It makes it sound like this place is a fucking hole. And if you're making millions of dollars off of me and you're taking me to a fucking hole,
yeah,
I respect it.
Yeah, good. I mean, it's got food all over the place. How can you
not love being here?
So now, fast forward to this movie, to Furious 7. There is the scene where Roman has to shine bright like only Roman can. We need you to distract a room full of people while Joe and I go in the other room. One of us lifts the car, the other one does some stuff underneath. What song are you singing a cappella style that is either so good it's captivating or so bad people don't know what's going on? What song are you singing to distract a room full of strangers?
So if I have to pull off my own classic birthday distraction,
yes,
move, you understand the assignment, as the internet says.
I'm absolutely going to be getting up there, and I'm going to be doing my best, potentially fake drunken a cappella version of "Build Me Up, Buttercup."
That's good. That's really. I don't think we've had a "Build Me Up, Buttercup." That's a really
because
good one.
There's enough there that if you give it the real, I'm supposed to be entirely shithoused behind it, you could scream that song at people.
Yep, and get them to sing along too, probably.
Oh, and at least half of that room is going to be into it.
Now, the other question from this movie is that also a Roman thing. When they are laying out the plan and they let Roman take charge and he's regaling everyone with his conquest from past movies, and Brian says to him, the only thing I've seen you take down is no knees to Denise at prom. If you hear a person being described as having no knees Denise, no knees Joe, no knees Matt, what does that connote to you?
It's similar in referring to someone having cankles in my mind.
Yep.
That this is a way of calling somebody fat without just calling them fat. And especially because her name is Denise, it's a fun way by making it rhyme so that way it feels like it's just a nice little joke rather than just being highly toxic.
Matt, do you have a favorite character in these movies? Either not necessarily they don't have to be in this movie in particular, but in this franchise, do you have a favorite character? Is it Idris Elba? Is it Brixton? Or is it somebody else?
No, it's not Brixton. I love Idris Elba. The character itself was left a lot to be desired. I would say, in all honesty, it is either Hobbs or Shaw, interchangeably, depending on the movie. Okay.
But not Hobbs and Shaw the movie.
And yet not Hobbs and Shaw the movie. I don't know why, but I love the concept of the villain, or at least antagonist, that has become so enamored by this found family of Doms that they just have to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Whether or not it utterly transcends logic of just human interaction. Like, I murdered one of your best friends in cold blood and fully willingly, but you and I are going to be buds.
I just love thinking about, like Joe noted, that you're like, my favorite characters in these movies are Hobbs and Shaw, and they're making a Hobbs and Shaw movie. I cannot wait for this. And then you're like, oh no.
It's a buddy cop movie.
It was one of those things where I was like, okay, I get it. I get, like, everything about this movie, like everything about Hobbs and Shaw, it made sense like the algorithm would make sense. Like, you love Hobbs, you love Shaw, you love how they interact. They're going to be in a movie together, and you get in there and you go, I mean, yeah, it's what they said it would be, but I don't know what the missing part of this is that I am not fully sold here.
Matt, let us now dive into Furious 7, but we're going to start first with a brand new feature on the show called Crazy Credits. I don't know if you know about Crazy Credits. Crazy Credits is a portion of IMDb that was originally put there to, like,
find bloopers,
log joke credits and stuff, and, you know, things in Airplane that are jokes, but, you know, people just made note of it. But here, a lot of the time movies have terrible crazy credits. So there are 3 crazy credits here. Joe, knowing Matt, were you familiar with crazy credits before I started this whole rambling speech, or is crazy credits new to you?
This is a fully new concept.
Cool. Okay. So now, Joe, knowing what crazy credits has morphed into, can you guess any of the crazy credits for this movie?
They say in memory of Paul Walker because Paul Walker died during the making of this film.
Before the credits, there is a title card that reads, quote, "For Paul," dedicating the film to deceased star Paul Walker. 295 up, 4 down. Overwhelmingly, people are like, that
nailed it.
Is a crazy credit.
That is pretty crazy.
Number 2, the films. So here, this is. Think about when I don't give a shit about the crazy credits. Like, that's, I know we're supposed to be care about them, but that whatever. Listen to the ups and downs, and I'm curious. This is one where I'm not sure. You'll see what I'm getting to when I get there.
Go ahead.
So the first one, overwhelmingly, number 1. Number 2, the film's title appears at the end of the opening credits. All right, a little crazy. 98 up, 23 down.
You struck a nerve. Okay.
Crazy credit number 3. The IMAX intro for the film features the statement, "Can't outrun the truth," a spinning tire wheel, and the sound of racing cars and police sirens. 14 up, 1 down. So clearly, 14, much lower number than 98. But to me, a 14-to-1 ratio is probably better than a 98 to 23, but also, like, because
they might be factoring in time.
You got to look at the ratio, yeah.
But you got to factor in the time. Maybe that's the newest one.
I would also say, though, because it's specifically talking about a credit that was only a part of the IMAX version of the film, that would be a credit that they only would have known of like back in 2015, when it was in theaters.
True.
So only getting 14 votes in the past, 7 years?
8 years, yep.
8 years? Yeah. So that's like, at this point, you've had enough time for anybody to come in and be like, that's pretty crazy.
Matt, I think you make a good point. Maybe it's not like newest, it's traction. Like, the other 2 keep getting upvotes, and everybody just ignores that third one. And
no one can get through to the third one. But they're like, I've read these are too crazy. I got to get out of here.
Exactly.
I'm just because they surface like the Reddit, they surface the most popular, the most useful, the most
exactly,
helpful, and
yeah.
I'm like, to me, I'm just like, again, the content. You're right. If in 8 years they only get 15 votes, that's not very interesting. But is the fewer votes but a higher, beneficial, more useful?
I have a better question. It's are you upvoting these when you read them? Because if not, you should be.
No, I'm not touching that. I don't want to. I'm hands off.
I would also wonder if it's that a lot of people are not voting it as being a crazy credit because since it was only like a theater thing, they haven't seen it, so they
can't
if they
confirm.
didn't experience
They
it.
can't confirm or deny.
It's like, for all I know, this guy's lying about this.
Yeah, he could have made it.
But I've seen that this movie says for Paul, and that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Well, those are all the crazy credits. There are 3 of them. Obviously, the for Paul one is the big one, and then there's the other 2. But Matt, take it away. This is your second favorite Fast
By the
and
way,
Furious
Joey,
movie.
we need to make mental note that when 11 comes out, we absolutely write the crazy credits for these.
Well, yeah. Although I also don't want here's the risk we run with that, right? We
What?
submit a crazy credit, and then we get West blocked, and then he has shit to hold over us. I kind of want to be like,
Oh, okay. Okay. Any listener out there?
If we don't try, we can't fail.
That's true.
I know that the Wayne Gretzky thing is the opposite. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But I don't want to succeed. I just want to not fail.
Right now we're batting 1,000 at nothing. So I'll take that.
But yes, listeners out there, if you want to submit crazy credits,
you should. As soon as 11 comes out, in the theater, we know we're gonna watch it the night it comes out. So just go to the car, type in your crazy credit, get 7,000 upvotes immediately.
Before we jump in, speaking of 11, I know that this has been a question that's been going back and forth with a lot of people. I want to get your opinions because, as far as I know, you guys are the most experts at these movies that I have any access to.
We prefer premiere and dedicated, but we'll take expert too.
Okay.
That was a joke for mainly Joey, but
for the 11th movie, do you think they will bring back Brian in some capacity?
100%.
The final one, yes.
They've been behind the scenes. The Walker family has been pushing hard for Cody Walker to rejoin the family, playing Brian's role. So
okay,
and think at the end of 9 we saw the car pull up, and then we also just didn't get him in 10. I actually we had talked about it. We expected him to come back for 10 for sure, just because of how 9 ended.
I do know. I think the one thing I remember talking to somebody about that the most I think missed opportunity they had was in 9, was that for Dom being a man who is so adamant about his family, and Brian being his essentially adopted brother.
Yes.
The fact that the adopted brother never met and had to face off with the actual Toretto brother.
I don't think we've ever talked about that, but that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we've never saw the confrontation between the new brother and old brother. That would have been an interesting dynamic.
I do want to pick a bone in this movie. It's broken record, goddamn broken record. Me, show me some goddamn respect. But when Mr. Nobody brings in Letty in the middle of the movie, he goes, "Dom, your team is now complete." I'm like, bullshit, it's not. Mia's not here. Stop saying the team's complete. She's not here. Doesn't count.
Yeah.
Not a complete team.
Especially when Mia was a massive part of things like the heist in 5. She brought it when no one else could, when they needed to be doing those time trials.
Right now, Mia has to make sure that the hotel room door is locked so that they have somewhere to come back to.
Yeah, they weirdly fridged her in this movie.
They fridge her in every movie. That's their favorite thing to do.
Well, I guess it's more along the lines of they fridged her in a way where it wasn't like she was in danger, or Dom was like, "I need to get you out of
she's not
this
kidnapped.
situation."
She's just sitting in
literally
a
just told to go away.
and in a hotel room somewhere, in a nice hotel room.
They attacked us in our house. You have to go away for a long time. Okay, what about you? No, I gotta murder this man.
Everybody else.
All right, Matt, where do you want to start? Things you love about this movie. If you want to start with things you don't love about this movie, it's no Fast 5, of course, but hit us with whatever you want to start with Furious 7.
I think the thing about Furious 7, I was thinking about this today on the drive back from work, getting ready to do the podcast, is trying to think of the various ways that I would break down this series into eras of Fast and Furious.
Thank you so much for the proper vocabulary.
Okay.
The first one that came to mind was, I feel like there's a way to break it into two halves right now. There's 1 through 5 all kind of fit into this era that is a mixture of street racing as well as high crimes and misdemeanors. And then 6 forward is where we then get into the era of basically these are now G.I. Joe films.
Yes.
Where it's they work for the government, taking down international espionage crews. Yeah, exactly. It's
wait. What's the GI Joe?
What
is it? Spectre? What is GI Joe?
Cobra.
Sorry, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the GI Joe team that has to take on the new version of Cobra in every movie. And then halfway through that era, it becomes every version of Cobra is someone who specifically has a vendetta against Dom Toretto.
Hey man, that's how it works.
But like, it was also things like, I was thinking like, 8, 9, and 10, I also would consider being like the post-Brian or sans-Brian era.
Yeah, very true.
Because now we have to find a way to continue the story when we don't have our bromance anymore. Like 1 through 3, I think, was the height of the street racing kind of era of the movies, because like it played a part in 4 and 5, but like the biggest parts, I think, of 1 through 3 literally were just street racing as a plot point. Whereas like in 4, street racing existed in the fact that it was meant to be like, this is why they're running drugs for a cartel kind of a thing.
Yes.
And then 5 was like, well, the street racing was how they won their cars, but most of it was just, we need to use cars to commit an Ocean's 11 heist.
Right. What makes our guys special? It's cars.
Yeah. And it's interesting in the fact that as time has gone on and we've gotten further and further into the movies, it is the idea of having a background in illegal street racing also makes you the perfect candidate for like Cold War era style espionage.
Yes, definitely.
But anyway, so I digress from that. I was trying to figure out some interesting ways to break that down.
I think that's an interesting split, because like the one that we've heard most often, I think the one that we usually use is like 1 to 4 are car movies, and then 5 and beyond are action movies. But I like the sort of street racing, because like 5 is the pivot point where it's kind of like 4 and 5 are kind of the pivot points where they're both. But I like your split of 1 through 5 and then 6 and beyond makes sense. It's like basically, are they saving the world? Yes or no?
And yeah, and that's how you could break it down, because the 5th one was the last time that they used their skills for personal gain through crime.
Yes.
100%. And a little bit of revenge.
But mostly personal gain through crime.
Well, no, because I guess 2 is, weirdly enough, Too Fast, Too Furious was like a prototype for what they would do down the road, because that was a lot more of like, we're undercover as criminals to try and take down this criminal.
Yeah, but that's also the first movie, though, too.
True. So many weird ways to break that down into various tiny little pockets. But anyway, I think the thing that I like so much about this movie is this. While Fast 5 was the beginning of like we're going to try and go bigger and bigger, Furious 7 was the one that just fully went in on everybody in this movie is pretty much an invincible godlike character.
Yes.
Yeah. Until they're not. Like, there are so many things in this movie that Dom Toretto experiences or goes through that would kill a mortal man. And he walks away from all of them with naught but a scratch. Until towards the end, when the story decides Dom Toretto needs to die for 2 minutes.
I mean, it's not the same thing, but it's almost like Highlander, where they're immortal unless you cut their head off, right? Like, it's these people are invincible unless you kill them, in which case they can die. But like, there's no wounding them. It's just like, you're either fine or you're dead, or you're like kind of dead, then they revive you.
And especially for the fact that like the movies have evolved over time, where in the earlier movies, like, you could hurt a character in these movies, or you could have it like, I mean, when Dom crashes the muscle car at the end of the first one, like, he is at least bloodied by this.
This is funny you say this, because like when I'm watching it this time, I'm thinking about like The Rock is like kind of bruised, maybe has some blood splatter in this one. And like, yeah, 100% with you. I'm following along. Like, but it was weird being. I was like, oh, I forgot The Rock like actually does have like a tiny cut.
Well, The Rock also breaks his arm. I mean, okay, so let's frame this out the right way. The Rock falls out of like a fourth or fifth story building onto a car, fully protects Elena and her unborn child in her belly, which we don't know about yet in the movie. And all he gets is a broken arm, which then a week later or so, he's able to fully flex out of with a normal arm.
Funny thing about the flexing out of the cast, here's something I never caught until this viewing of the movie.
Okay.
Is early on when we first see Hobbs when he's working at the office before he gets attacked by Shaw, he is watching the old Incredible Hulk TV show on a TV in the background of his office. And he makes a comment about how it's like a stupid concept for a show while watching like Lou Ferrigno turn into the Hulk and rip through his clothing with his muscles.
Yes.
To which point later on, we then watch him Hulk through his cast by just flexing through it.
Yep.
I love that. That is such a lovely little stupid moment to be like, he finds the concept of a man turning into a monster and hulking out of his clothing stupid until he does it.
And later, or is it before? Was it last movie? What does Roman have him as Samoan Hulk at some point?
Well, he's in people's phones as Captain America, as Samoan Thor, maybe they
Samoan
call him
Thor,
the Hulk.
you're
like,
right. Yes.
He is the most like superhero body of all of them, right? So
yeah. But they often refer to him as like something including the Hulk.
Yeah, and I just love the idea of like him dismissing Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk, where it's like, man, if it wasn't for Lou Ferrigno playing the Hulk, you wouldn't have a career.
100%, yeah.
This is the movie where it fully lets you know and understand, like, this is what we are from the beginning, from the opening of this movie when we meet Deckard Shaw in the hospital as he's visiting a comatose Luke Evans. This is the movie that lets you know within like 2 minutes, this is the movie you're about to watch, and if you're not in, you're going to hate everything that comes after this.
Oh, you think this is like a make it or break it for the rest of the franchise?
No, I mean, just like when you're sitting in the theater.
I think for this movie specifically.
Okay.
But I think that because this movie was so well received in that regard, they couldn't go back from that point anyway. Like, could you imagine seeing Furious 7 and all of its cartoony comic book, action goodness, and then the next movie is like another Tokyo Drift?
Or like Super Grounded.
Yeah, where it's just like, oh yeah, we're doing this whole story about like a character who has to learn how to drive a car a certain way in order to try and date a girl who's dating a member of the Yakuza.
I would love it. I think a lot of I think there's two minds.
People would walk out. They would just chuck beers at the screen and walk out.
Well,
it would have to be a Fast and the Furious presents a true love story of some bullshits.
I do agree with Joey that I am also of the mind where if you give me a movie where one of these movies is this massive blockbuster action film filled with car crashes, and like I'll give you an example in a second, and then the next film after it is like this slow burn character piece, I personally would love it because I love the concept of just being like, yeah, fuck you, this is the movie we made. But I know that your massive general audience would riot.
So here's what I think. I think if it's all new characters that we don't know, people would not like it. I think if it's a smaller, grounded story featuring all of the actors we know, I think they would be okay with it. Because I think people would welcome a change. Because I think that there is the same way, even though there's not been as many, I think there's the same kind of like fatigue as there was at the MCU. Like they can't keep saving the world. Like these feel stale to a certain extent. And I think if they ground it in a way, or if they had grounded it in a way, now they can't because there's only like one or two left, whatever. I think if they had done the thing where just like, this is going to be an intimate story or whatever, I think people would be okay with it. But I think they're not going to do that. But again, to the point of like, if it's a spin-off where it's all new characters, or maybe there's just one character crossover continuation, like, no, it would have to be like, like you were saying, it would have to be like a Fast and Furious Presents. But yeah. I think people would be okay with a smaller movie if it's the actors they know. But again, it's a nice hypothetical, but like they're never going to do that.
They're never doing that.
No.
This isn't even a thought.
This is not a franchise that can ever decide from here on out that it's going to take risks for artistic purposes.
Right.
No, I agree.
If they ever were going to try that, it actually probably would have been right after this, because I feel like if you had made Fate of the Furious a movie in which like Cypher attacks Mr. Nobody and his government agency, kills them, breaks the connection that Dom and his team have with the government and their backing, and basically it's they're now on the run and on their own kind of a thing, probably could have worked, but not anymore.
Yeah, they would. I think you're right, and I also think just like logistically, it would have been the time to do it to be like, oh, we like actually killed off Brian, right? Like they couldn't have done that, but that would have been the only appropriate time to be like, we kill off everyone and Brian, and like these are who's left type situation.
Yeah, and then it's a whole thing where it's like they're not superheroes, they're not secret agents, and now it's they have to use their wits and street racing to win the day.
They just start over, lose all their level down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it put them back on like a Fast 5 level.
Yeah, I mean, look, I would love it, but again,
they're not doing that.
But anyway, I do believe that the introduction to Deckard Shaw is one of my favorite things I've seen in the past 10 years of film.
Really? Are you talking about in this movie or in
this movie?
What about the credit scene for 6?
So the credit scene for 6 is definitely a wonderful way of basically being like, you guys are going to want to tune in next time because this shit just got real.
Yep.
Okay.
But I feel like the hospital scene with him is one of my favorite visual gags. And especially for the fact that they took the painstaking detail of, we made sure that no one you see who is dead is anything but police. So it means you can't say that Deckard Shaw came in here and just started gunning down nurses or anything like that.
No, they're just scared.
Specifically only killed the cops.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great because it gives you this wonderful kind of like, it's a wonderful show don't tell to let you know that like this dude is not to be fucked with, but he also has a code.
Okay, yeah.
I made a note this time that as much as we love, like I think there's like a fan favorite moment, it can't touch when the Flash enters the Speed Force. Like I know that that's not a cheer-worthy moment like the Oscars are going to celebrate, but I think a fan favorite moment in this franchise is the Statham rescuing the baby, right? Like people over and over love that scene. Mm-hmm. And obviously, like we were talking earlier, a lot of Hobbs and Shaw is like, don't you love this guy being kind of silly and kind of charming or whatever? I love that. I love him in Spy. I think he's a very funny actor when he wants to be. I realized in watching this movie this time, maybe it's just the mood I was in today, surly Deckard, who like isn't being silly, is the right fit for this franchise. I think when he softens, it like it's so
cartoony.
Undercuts things, and like the same thing with Hobbs, right? Like when Hobbs is doing his soccer coaching and talking about Tay-Tay, like it's just like I get it. I like the appeal. That's not the one that we need for this franchise. Like there's
I was gonna say Fast 5 Hobbs, just sweaty Dwayne Johnson in a shirt that is 3 sizes too small, yelling at everybody that they are fucking up and that's why they haven't caught Dom Toretto yet, is exactly who that he needed to be.
When he's sitting there with the stamper in this movie and he is just like completely drenched, I was like, I'm glad you guys leaned into it. He's just drenched, has a towel on his shoulders, wipes his head because he's just they realized that we were laughing that he's constantly wet and oily, and they were just like, you know what, we're just gonna douse him today. And
I love that it becomes a character like staple. Is like Hobbs is always fucking sweaty.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And then they keep pushing it. Like I can't believe we haven't seen a movie yet where he isn't just like constantly soaked. You know what I mean? Like in the rain, just like dripping. But
or like a fight scene where he winds up falling into a pool
they fight in the rain in Hobbs and Shaw.
They do.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Never mind.
They do.
Okay, they did it. We got there.
I also want to think, while we're, not to jump ahead toward the end, but while we're talking about villain reveals, so this is the first one and the only one that was directed by James Wan. So after Justin Lin does 3 through 6, he steps away because he's making Star Trek, I think.
He was doing the 3rd Star Trek at the time.
And so he comes back for 9. Obviously, he comes back for 10 and then leaves or whatever. So this is the James Wan one. And I feel like there are certain things in this movie, I'll mention other ones later, that like don't feel Fast and Furious, like aren't good, aren't bad, just like are different. But when we first meet in the flesh Mose Jakande, there's like a slow-mo, sort of like Michael Bay, like spin around as he gets out of the car. And like it's like a very, like evocative villain reveal. I'm like, this doesn't feel Fast and Furious. I think also part of it is that like we don't really give a shit about Mose Jakande. No offense to Jimon Hansu, like as the performance. Like this is the Deckard as the villain movie, right? But like him getting out of the car, I'm like, we don't meet people like this. Like this is not how this franchise introduces villains. Like they introduce villains by doing something cool, not like menacingly getting out of a car in sunglasses. It's just like, what's going on here? Like, it just felt weird to me. Like, it wasn't bad. It's just like, this isn't what we do.
Does it feel weird because in the first one, the spinorama getting out of the car in sunglasses is Letty?
I think what it is it's because the way that we get introduced to him, like as Joey's saying, like think of it like the way we meet him versus the way we meet Shaw.
Yeah.
When we meet Deckard Shaw, like he has just blown up half a hospital to go visit his brother who's in a coma and vow revenge to kill Dom Toretto. When we meet Hansu, it's just he's arrived. Arrived at a place he is going. So you don't get a sense that this guy is a threat as a villain. He is literally just a plot point as a villain.
Like when we meet Brixton, who we were talking about earlier, when he shows up in the beginning of Hobbs and Shaw, he just like kills a bunch of cops and like steals a thing. You know what I mean? Like it's like they're doing a thing. They're like, you should fear this guy. Here, just kind of like, it's the same thing when like Cypher, like she's just like, Charlie's broken down the side of the road. It's just like, all right, like so she's got leverage, but like, are we supposed to fear her? Like kind of, but it's not like, I'm not worried about her the way that like Matt's saying, like I'm worried about Deckard.
So yeah, it's interesting because it feels like the movie is also saying, this guy is secondary as an antagonist.
Also true, yeah.
And so it's letting you know, like, hey, yeah, he's going to be part of this. He's going to be the big thing that we're dealing with for a while. But also, he's not a threat.
Which is weird. Which is a weird way to introduce your movie's villain, or one of your movie's villains.
Yeah, and it's especially the villain that is the storyline villain.
Correct.
Because Shaw is their Joker. He is just a wild card that will show up every so often. Even when they are apparently looking for him, he just shows up and they are still looking for him, apparently. Like, that's still one of my favorite things to point out about this movie is the introduction of Mr. Nobody is showing up and being like, I'll help you track down Shaw. I was just talking to him.
Yep.
He was already here. And I do like the fact that there's a bit of a difference in the direction of this movie that is James Wan trying to put his own spin on things.
Yeah, definitely.
But there are also moments where James Wan is like, I know exactly the movie I'm making and the series we're in, when you have like, and here's our tracking shot of a woman's ass in a bikini while we're at Race Wars.
And like I don't want to be like, you have to make these movies the way that Justin Lin would make the movies, but I'm just like this. Like and again, it's a single shot, but I feel like it's just like it's a greater testament to like the screenplay, the script, the story doesn't really know how to introduce Mose Jakande, because like he gets out of his car and is like, all right, everybody aim at him. Like he's not doing anything either, and then Dom just drives off the cliff, right? Like or off the mountain. It's just a weird thing.
It's odd for the fact that it's also because we are trying to do this more James Bond style of villain.
Okay.
And like that's one of the big things about the James Bond movies is the introduction or the first confrontation between Bond and main villain is built to be a memorable moment. And just having him get out of a car and look at Dom through his windshield is not that. What's memorable is then Dom drives his car off a cliff to get away from the guy.
While we're on the topic of things that don't really feel like Fast and Furious, there are two other things that I made a note of. Number one, the way they casually introduced Hobbs' daughter, Samantha, I'm just like, interesting. Like, it's not something they've done. I mean, they always have, like, new family to pop up, but I feel like there's always, like, a story element here. Just like, oh, yeah, he's got a kid. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
I wonder if there's some, like, uncut scenes that they had given her that they, like... I mean, you know what I mean? Like, stuff that, like, didn't even make the extended edition.
Like, I wonder if this was, like, to soften him and be like, we want to make him more family-friendly for a pot. Like, if they were positioning, like, a spin-off now. Because, like, we don't need, traditionally, the government guy to be more than just the government stereotype. Like, there's no reason for us to have a family for him unless they're already like, could we
make movie
him
entirely
the star of like a 4-quadrant Fast and Furious movie?
It does feel like a bit of it is sort of a backdoor pilot for what if Hobbs had his own series.
Mm-hmm.
Because we get to see that he's a family man. We get to see that he isn't, just the sweaty hard ass that works for the government. And I think it feels like to me a part of that is built from most likely behind the scenes stuff that Dwayne Johnson was requesting. Like it was probably like, well, if I'm going to be part of the movies and I'm going to be one of like the good guys now, I need more that makes me look like I'm a good guy. So what if like he's a dad and he's got a daughter who like is in soccer and loves to color and whatever. It's like,
maybe. I mean, I think that you might be onto something. I think it's just weird that they introduced that in a movie that he's barely in, right? Where he's got scheduling conflicts. He can't really be a star of Furious 7. They're like, hey, he's not in the movie a lot, but here's something who is, or here's someone who is his daughter.
And it could be possibly they tried to, I mean, and the weird thing is like the way that they explain him not being in it is, oh, he got, grievously injured in his fight with Shaw. That's really all you need. It does feel like it's trying to lay the groundwork for something later on. So then you can have Hobbs with his own like Taken movie where his daughter's been kidnapped and now he's got to go get her.
That sounds like a movie I want to watch.
But it is odd that in a series that has this very big through line of family, we just kind of throw away like, oh, by the way, he's a dad.
I was noticing that like James Wan, like you're talking about Bond, like this sort of like imitating the Bond to a certain extent, right? Mm-hmm. In that party scene we talked about before that we were asking about your karaoke question, when they get there and there's like the sort of like very fast forward thing and then there's like the jilted stop motion, whatever, like, and it looks cool. Like it's a very like mid 2010s like way of shooting action and be like, this is cool. And like kind of like, weird editing and whatever. And like, it's visually stunning. Mm-hmm. To me, the way the party was being set up this time made it feel like they were shooting a Mission Impossible movie. But like in Mission Impossible, when Ethan passes someone and they make like eye contact, you'd be like, oh, that person's going to come back later. But here they're just like, hey, there's a hot woman. And it's just like there's no later payoff. It's just like there's like a couple people who like basically like, not look at the camera, but like walk by the camera like as featured extras. And you're like, they're going to come back. It's like, no, they're just very attractive. And they just want to show you that they're at the party.
It's just that interesting aspect that is very much a Fast and the Furious sort of thing of we at every so often we need to reestablish that our main characters fuck.
Well, they don't though.
Or want to.
They're just hot.
They are always
fuckable.
Horny.
They look fuckable.
People want to fuck them.
Yes.
They don't fuck canonically other than babies. Like, we've talked about that a lot this lap. Like, these characters don't fuck. They procreate and they romance. But, like, since the first movie, none of these have been horny.
Earlier, I had alluded to the idea of I will explain at some point as to why I ranked Too Fast, Too Furious so high on my list versus so many other people.
Okay.
Too Fast, Too Furious is the most bisexual movie in this entire franchise.
Okay.
So filled with subtext that lets you know that at some point, Roman and Brian fucked. Mm-hmm. And we're a dating couple for the longest time. But we also, because of the way these movies are made, and especially in that part of the franchise, there is no real full-on concept of sex in these movies outside of like people look hot, people wear revealing clothing, and then we kind of like ogle them and all that kind of, or have a baby. But especially in that movie, street racing is sex for Roman and Brian.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you see it in the fact of how they interact with each other, the stare and drive moment, the fact that as time goes on and they're racing with each other again, like it's bringing back all these memories of the old times together, because that's what it was the two of them, they would street race, and that was their sexual relationship.
Now there's a thought I had about the one street race we see in this movie, which is at Race Wars, and it's Letty, and Dom leans in her window and is just like, don't take it above 9,000 this time, right? And she's like, that's not my style. I got to ride or die. And he's like, this guy's going to blow out his pistons or whatever, right?
Yes.
I was thinking, and it would be undercut completely by the fact that he like tells her, but I'm like, what if he sabotaged that dude's car to give her like a confidence boost? Like, you still got it.
That would be a nice homage to Jacob doing it later too, by the way. That would have been really nice touch.
Like, I would love that, but it'd be weird if he did that and he's just like, hey, hang back. Like, he'd be like, no, you got this. Like, it would be like weird to be like, to sabotage him so that she would win and then tell her to like not go all out. Like, it's
don't try as hard.
Like, it doesn't fully make sense, but I would love in this world where Dom is just like fucking other people's engines because he wants Letty to like race her memory back into her.
Get her juice back. Yeah, I feel you. It was funny. I was watching it this time and I was like, Dom is like such a good racer. He knew the guy's weakness. And 2 is the ultimate like end of this that Dom is just like running like Nicolas Cage in Gone in 60 Seconds. Like he's running like a little kid's like go-karting school. Is that like his ultimate retirement plans?
You think
like,
he's going to retire and just like run Race Wars part-time?
No, not Race Wars. Like specifically like I'm going to teach children how to drive type situation. You know what I mean? Like he's like in a karting like a touring, like he's with Baby B and they are like, yeah, Dad, like we work on my cart together, and it becomes, what was the fucking movie with Brie Larson?
The one with the Disney Channel movie?
Yeah, the Disney Channel cart like drag racing whatever movie.
We covered it. What was it called? Right on Track, 2003.
Right on Track. Yeah. Like and like Dom is just like the dad in Right on Track, and it becomes like this.
I think the ideal future for Dom is he quote unquote retires, even though he'll never retire. He's an old Italian man; they never stop working.
The truth.
But he lets just like the next generation take over, and he's like coaching from the sidelines, right? Like I don't think
it's the same thing. That's what I'm saying. It's like a step below.
I think
is the karting. He's the pit crew chief of their karting team, and it's like Jack, Baby Brian.
I would say I see it in the way where for Dom, like race wars and street racing and all that, it's almost like organized crime pretty much, because at times it is. But it's that kind of thing where like he may not get behind the wheel anymore, but he is always around and he's always at least in some way involved.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So like he at every race, he's still there. He's still out there to watch with his, bucket of Corona. And, everyone coming by being like, oh, my God, Dom, how are you? He's like, yeah, hi, love you, family, whatever. But, like, it's just like he doesn't have to do it anymore, but he chooses to still be there.
Yeah, I think the only thing that because I think this is like almost an inevitable feature for Dom. I think the only important thing is that in my mind, he's only doing it for family. He's not doing it for like, he does like being the center of attention. I don't know. Maybe I could kind of go either way on this one.
So he likes being the center of attention, which means he would still make himself the face of like race wars or whatever, but he wouldn't run it. Like Dom Toretto does not do the logistics of this.
This is what I'm thinking too. Like I don't even think he's the guy that would like hold the money.
I think he's more hands-on with his own kids or kids he knows, like kids in the family. And I think he's like running things, but not directly teaching to like kids in Cuba or kids in the DR.
He had a family garage in the first movie, right?
Yeah, Toretto's.
So
garage.
Yeah, I would say he'd probably still have that going, but it would be like, yeah, he raised his son. The son's now like working in the garage doing the work of it, and it's like Dom's the one who's like customer facing.
I can't even see him be customer facing, to be honest. He's back room for sure.
Oh no! Because he loves the idea of people coming in and being like, "Oh, Dom, you gonna take care of me? You gonna take care of my car?" He's like, "Oh yeah, my kid, he'll take care of you. He's got this good." Like,
I think Joe is right here. Sorry, Matt, but I think what was the movie? What was the Matt Damon, Christian Bale movie? The racing movie, we talked about it.
Oh, Ford v Ferrari?
Yeah, Ford versus Ferrari.
Where like it's like Carroll Shelby is like his name's on the thing, but he like is grumpy in a back room somewhere. They're like, Carol, we really need you to close the sale. And
yes,
like,
that's what I'm saying. Like it's
okay.
it's like Dom's recommendation, and then they're like, Dom, do you like this? And he's like, nah, I don't care about that.
Because like we know from the very beginning, the first time we ever see Dom on screen, he's got his back to us doing the books or whatever the fuck in the market, right? And Mia's out there in the front. Like Mia's definitely
that's
the
what I was
front
thinking
of this
too.
thing. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
Like I think Dom is there.
He
and
exists.
Dom's important.
And
but
everybody comes there for him. Matt, I think the idea that like everybody's coming there because they want to see him is very, very real. But he's like, I would like to be lusted after from afar.
So here's a question I had for you guys, because it has been God knows how long since I've seen the first movie of this.
Okay.
And I didn't have the time to try and find it out on my own. So I figured I would just ask you guys. In the first movies, was Race Wars like a giant Burning Man festival like it is in this?
Even
was.
probably
Okay.
more so than this, to be honest.
Because it was at night too. Yeah.
It was a rave that had car racing when they couldn't rave at night.
Okay.
Like literally trash can fires.
And like kids with like light gloves. Like it was a rave.
The wonderful 2001
Yes.
LED gloves. Yes. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, I like I said, it's been forever since I saw it. And I was like, I don't remember.
If you watch it again, it's
how
even
big
more
it
of a
was.
rave. If you like, it's crazy. Like you watch it again, you're like, oh my god, they're at this like full on rave for like 6
Also,
minutes.
how many more years can they go calling it Race Wars before someone tries to shut it down on them?
Like it should have been cut before this movie for sure.
Yeah, like in 2001, it's a questionable name. In 2015, it is fucking unacceptable.
Yeah. The fact that they bring it back at all is insane. Like I can kind of sort of a little bit understand why they would do it, in 2001, but 2015, like what are we doing here, guys?
It feels, and the thing that to me in this movie, it feels like with Dom bringing Letty to it, it feels like they don't have any involvement in it being like run anymore.
No, they've
like
franchised it out. Like, this is Hector's
like
one. Yeah,
they're coming back to like visit their high school in this kind of
It's
situation.
Fight Club. They're coming back to see like a franchise of Fight Club.
Yeah. So it's odd to me that it's like, yeah, when we were, back in 2001, when like a bunch of us would get together out in the dunes and we'd race, and we called it Race Wars. It was kind of stupid, but it's like, no, this shit's like corporate sponsored.
Yeah, and they could have also been like, yeah, like they'd be like Race in the Valley, and he'd have been like, we invented this. This is what Race Wars used to be, or like this is what Race Wars became.
We used to call this Race Wars.
Yeah, and they could have squashed it there.
Stopped calling it.
You
that.
could also make a joke about like, we didn't think that name was such a good idea anymore.
Yeah,
like
Twinkie.
I don't go by Twinkie anymore, right? Like we could have done the exact same joke.
Yeah, you could have had just Dom being like, I don't know, man. I don't know why you had to change the name, and just someone being like, Race Wars, Dom? You don't know why we had to change that name?
I think you're right, but also in these movies, Dom can't be wrong, so like they would not correct Dom.
That's true.
He'd have been they changed the name, but like this is Race Wars.
Yeah.
And he would have been begrudging.
Or you know what? No, it's such a Dom way. It would it'd always be Race Wars to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go.
And you're like, okay, all right.
Race in the Valley, or as you might remember it, Race Wars.
Oh boy.
So very quickly, here's what I was pitching earlier.
Okay.
I think, especially given that it's October and this franchise was never into a horror movie, here is why I think this is the Fast and Furious horror movie. There's two things. They're both very flimsy. But number one, lots of time spent in graveyards. Twice.
Okay.
There's a funeral.
Okay.
And they go at night to, with a sledgehammer, break up Letty's tombstone. Number one.
Okay, yeah.
Number two, Mr. Nobody talking about ghosts and shadows. It's like, whoa.
They've mentioned ghosts so many times at the beginning of this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Deckard's a ghost. Mm-hmm. Ghosts and shadows. Welcome back, Ghost Girl. Like, there's a lot of ghosting in the beginning of this movie.
It's also very odd to me. Like there's a strange undertone to that as well, that this is the movie where like they refer to people as like, ghosts and, welcome back Ghost Girl in the movie where 50% of Paul Walker's part had to be played by other people because he died while making it.
I totally thought this, Matt. I 100% did.
So like the movie literally has the ghost of Paul Walker in it.
Yes. And they totally kept in all the references to ghosts in the first half of the movie.
Yep.
Until he probably died, and they were like, oh shit, we should stop saying the word ghost in this.
I mean,
movie.
and the other side of that, I would say then, Joey, that I would agree with you is that Deckard Shaw is absolutely a slasher villain.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, he shows up out of nowhere. The moment he shows up, shit gets real, shit gets violent, and they need to get away from him.
Yeah.
And he's kind of also on his own trajectory. Like, it's just like, he totally just operates in his own path.
Yeah.
Also,
sure.
To the earlier conversation we were having, like, they're all unkillable, right? Like, what's true of, like, Jason and Freddy and Michael? It's like, you can't kill them. They always come back, right? So...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, like Shaw's entire... trajectory in this movie, it is the single-minded Jason Voorhees, I am going to kill these people, and that is it.
Yeah.
Is it well, I guess Jason has his mom, but I was just thinking, like, in terms of the family element, like, it's kind of like Michael and Laurie, like, although he's not hunting his sister, he's not hunting Owen. I don't know, this kind of gets messy. Like, I want to make this parallel so
I can
bad,
see it. No, I feel it. I feel it. You're close. We're close.
Yeah.
Was it 6 or was it after this when they established Helen Mirren as their mother?
It is in 8.
I was going to say, because you also could have had that. You could have just brought in Helen Mirren and had it be like, yeah, I want you to get revenge for your brother.
Yeah.
Which she kind of does, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, she comes in at the end when Dom meets her in the bar, and she's like, I got a cup, I'm fucking thirsty, right? Like, it's...
Yeah.
No.
Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this movie was the beginning of celebrities showing up in these movies just because they liked these movies.
Is that true? Probably.
Because this was the one where we had Iggy Azalea at Race Wars.
Yes.
We had Ronda Rousey come in to fight Michelle Rodriguez.
I think that they thought... I don't think Ronda Rousey is like a celebrity cameo. I thought they really thought for a second Ronda Rousey might be a character in these movies. And then she decided that, you know what, I'll prove them wrong with my acting skills.
Well, there's that. I also wonder if the fact that she's really good friends with Dwayne Johnson is both what brought her in and then took her out of these movies.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
I mean, it does sort of feel like, just like how for a while the Pirates would be a pipeline to the Yankees, Pirates...
Yeah.
Like, it does feel like there's kind of like a WWE to Fast and Furious pipeline where just like, hey, like, you're a big name, like, here, let's break you out into something bigger, like, let's put you in something that's established that, like, is going to be tasked for success, right?
Vince wants it. I'm sure Vince is all aboard this train. You know what I mean?
Vince, when you said Vince, I was like, Matt Scholes, Vince from the first movie, but
no,
you're also
no,
Vince McMahon. I know, but like, what if Vince McMahon, or what if Matt Scholes took over as CEO of WWE?
That would be the coolest thing
Would
ever.
love it.
For that pipeline, the thing that I feel like is another very big missed opportunity, we have no Dave Bautista in these movies.
He hates these movies.
He hates these. He said.
Oh,
he
does
says,
he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
openly.
I did not know that. Oh,
he says he won't be in like shitty movies like Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
Or, like the quote was something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing.
And yet,
but it was
he'll put his name all over all the MCU clones by this point, right? But like,
I was going to say, I'm wondering if this was around the time when he was doing Blade Runner 2049 and was like really pushing for the I want to be Dave Bautista, the very serious actor.
No, this was like Guardians of the Galaxy interviews.
Oh,
he was like doing Drax promo, and they were like, "Do you ever think about being in the Fast and the Furious?" He's like, "No, I do films." And we're like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, no, David, no.
Yeah, it was literally almost, it was very much something along these lines.
Oh no. All right. Well, I mean, I also saw Knock at the Cabin, so you're in those too.
Yes, we did see Knock at the Cabin.
He's pretty okay in that movie. That movie
he's all right.
Just also
he's
just
all right.
pretty okay.
I like Dave Bautista, but he definitely foot and mouthed himself in the Fast and the Furious.
Look, it's the same issue that like all these big muscly guys have. Like, if they're good, you're like, oh wow, like they get the benefit of the doubt because like they look the way they do, and you're like, oh, actually you can act, right? But like it's not like they're not like trained actors. I'm not saying that like WWE, because like I think a lot of the WWE performers are probably better actors than most actual actors, but I think that like they have other skill sets. Like they're in these movies for the way they look or what the things they can do or like the
their
type
athleticism,
of role, right?
their everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah.
They have trained themselves to be in a position where you will believe that they know how to beat the shit out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so the note that I was going to bring up, this movie is the next step in our evolution of just how strong is Dom Toretto.
Yes.
Because I believe that starts in 4 when he threatens to crush a man's head with an engine block by holding it up with one hand. But he does struggle with holding it up with the chain winch.
And by 9, he just destroys an entire wall by pulling it into him.
So this was the next step where we have him deadlift half of a 3,000-pound car and just hold it.
As one does.
As one would. And I remember seeing a video a little while back talking about this movie where one of the people said, I think the one thing that is about that scene is just like, how is Brian's reaction not just, what the fuck?
Yeah.
He's just like, oh yeah, this is just what Dom does.
Like there's the scene we're talking about in this movie where they're talking about no knees to knees, and like Dom just looks exhausted by having to be around Roman and Brian. Like, I think to a certain extent, like, having spent so much time, like, it's the same kind of thing where it's just like, here goes Joey, another one of these rants or whatever, and Joe just kind of tunes out. Like, I think there's something like you've been around these people enough where it's just like, I'll catch up with them when they're done, right? It's just like, they're doing their thing.
It feels like the most honest thing ever, because at this point they've spent so much time together. Mm-hmm. They probably do that in the middle of shooting. Like, oh fuck, we have to do this Roman scene. I don't give a fuck about this.
You have to wonder how much of that is Dom and how much of that is Vin.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I do honestly kind of like the way that they build it, where it's like, yeah, it's Dom's attitude towards Roman is like, yeah, you're my friend's friend that is now, I guess, part of my group, but that doesn't mean you and I are going to hang out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We never see Dom and Roman alone. Brian always.
See Dom and Roman alone.
I mean, now we do because Paul doesn't.
Well, there's no Brian Buffer anymore.
Yes, yeah. But I'm saying, like,
but no. Well, I was going to say
even still, they're not alone.
I think he always has Tej around.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they decided early on, Roman and Tej was like, that's our comedic duo. And they are in every scene together.
It would be interesting, and I don't really want to go too far down this train of thought, because it's depressing to think about, like, with Paul dying and stuff like that. But imagine if, like, Roman had been introduced, like, in 6, right, as, like, the same way, like, this is my boy from Barstow, blah blah blah, right, and then Paul dies, or maybe no, Roman gets introduced, like, say in 7, right, and then Paul dies in real life in that same movie, whatever. And there's only one movie of background of history. Like, it's not like Roman's been part of the team for like a decade.
He's gone.
He's not back, right? He's like, Dom's like,
he's
oh
done.
yeah, thank you for your service. We're good.
Dom's not gonna call Roman and be like, hey bud, you remember that one time you and I ran because you knew Brian? Mm-hmm. We need you back. Like, no, he'll find somebody else to be the loudmouth idiot.
No, they just combine. Roman just becomes a part of Tej's character. They just make Ludacris play Roman as well as Tej. And then opens the door for Ramsey, and he would just slowly transition into being Roman full-time, and Ramsey would just assume Tej's role.
Or they could go very meta with it and bring in Ja Rule.
Well, they wanted to bring Ja Rule back, and he's like, all right, $50 million. And they're like, never mind, we're just going to get Tyrese. We're going to get Ludacris.
Yeah, it was Ludacris that got his role.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite things Ludacris has ever said in an interview was, if Ja Rule hadn't been such an idiot, I wouldn't be in, like, the biggest movies in the world right now.
I wouldn't be making so much fucking money every time. Like, every 2 summers, I just cash a big-ass check.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of people we want to bring back or things, we need to sneak the honor guy back into these movies. I think that in the end game, everybody rolls up three buildings, 2 bad, 3 honor, like this. He needs to come back and just make like a quick peep in just for us, you know what I mean, just like a quick cameo, 1 line, and he's just part of like a crowd or something like that. But we need to see him again, just like fan favorite, what was his name from 10? Self-appointed fan favorite. We need to bring him back.
Diogo?
What's the character's name? Diogo. Yes. Just like fan favorite Diogo, he needs to come back.
Matt, do you have any recollection who Diogo is?
I don't.
Good.
I actually don't.
That's proving the point.
Yeah.
Because when you said fan favorite character, self-appointed from Fast 10, the first thing I was going to say is, what, Pete Davidson?
On Diogo's IMDb, it says fan favorite character of the Fast and the Furious franchise. No. And we were like, according to who?
According to him and his team.
I've got no idea.
Yeah.
Question for the two of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which do you prefer in punch-ups? Do you think that Michelle Rodriguez versus Ronda Rousey, or Michelle Rodriguez versus Gina Carano?
Oh, Gina Carano.
Gina Carano.
Yeah,
I think Ronda Rousey just flubs this so hard every time I watch it. It's like worse and worse.
Every time I see that scene, I'm like, even though I know it's going to be the same exact thing, I'm just like, maybe this is the time where she delivers the lines like they actually have purpose. And it's like, nope, these parties bore me to death. Is that a joke? I still don't know.
It would be better if she was like, yeah, like, I did them with some charisma, and they said do them bland, so I did them as bland as possible. And I'd be like, okay, cool, I respect that.
No, I have seen her in WWE, and charisma is not a word I would put to Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, I remember when she fucked up WrestleMania, and
yeah.
But
it's like, seeing her play this character.
Do you know that, Joey?
This is the best you're gonna get.
There was a WrestleMania where she like didn't untap herself.
So I went to this WrestleMania.
You were at this WrestleMania?
It was at MetLife Stadium.
That's right, it was. Yeah. And like she's like supposed to win or lose and whatever, like she just like did the opposite, and everybody like saw it. Go ahead.
She was supposed to lose initially it was going to be that they were going to do like a roll up pin. She was going to get the 2 count and kick out, and then they were going to flip it around and they were going to put her in like a submission hold, and they would have her tap out because her big thing is she is a big submission wrestler. So having Ronda tap out is a big moment. She didn't kick out of the pin, so she just lost in a roll-up pin in the main event of the biggest fucking pay-per-view of the year.
Yeah, so it's like the match just like stops.
It's just like everyone was like, oh my God, Becky won, and like even she's looking around like, what happened? You got the 3 count. Oh, I got the 3 count.
Yeah. Well, like in spite of that being a major fuck up, I'm sure part of the WWE is probably just like, maybe it's good that she's not still around, right? Like, if she wins, she has to stick around, she has to wrestle again. They're just like, again, you probably don't want that to happen on your biggest stage.
She was back. I believe she is now officially done. Because they did a run for a little while with her where she was wrestling again, and then she was like tag team wrestling with Shayna Baszler because they're both MMA fighters. And then I think they kind of
and that's a huge demotion, Joey. I mean, I'm sure you know that or can see that, but like if you go from like, oh, we watched Young Rock, right? Like when you go from like the champ to like the tag team champs, like you're
you got dropped down to mid card.
Yeah.
And so they did that for a little while. They had Shayna turn on her, and then Ronda just disappeared off of TV. What do you guys think about? I don't even know if I want to call this a joke, really, but the reveal of Ramsey being a sexy lady, despite being the hacker they're trying to find.
This is like pretending when the girl in high school takes her glasses off and then everybody realizes she's hot. Like, Ramsey's hot. We saw she was hot whether she has clothes on or not. And then you put her in a bikini, you're like, yeah, still hot. But it's really funny that...
We just saw it in Barbie, right? Where Gosling takes off Hari Neff's glasses and she's like, oh my God, you are beautiful. It's just like, well...
No, yeah, exactly. It's that. You're like, who is this for?
But they're not playing it as a joke here. Like, I mean, it's a joke, but it's not that joke. It's like...
Yeah, they're not making fun of the reveal. Like,
no.
it's not a meta joke on the, like, oh, the nerd's actually hot. The whole joke is that Tej and Roman cannot believe that a hot woman is smart.
Yeah. I skim over that because I don't want it to believe that that's what they're doing.
What's
but yes, that is what they're doing.
Not like that. Okay.
They do, and then they do the same joke again when Cypher comes around. They're like, "What? Like that's Cypher?" Like Ramsey does it. Like I didn't think Cypher looked like that. And you're like, "Babe, you're so hot."
No, Ramsey's confusion that she thinks Cypher is a group of people. She doesn't think that Cypher is
okay.
Like, she's confused. She's like, I can't believe this is all one person. It's not like, oh my God, a hacker's a woman.
But it's not one person. I mean, it's one person doing the hacking, but she has like a fucking pilot and like crew.
I honestly think the best way they could have done that joke would to have Ramsey be surprised that Cypher is white.
Oh.
I knew that she was a hacker with dreads. I didn't think she'd be white.
Yeah.
It's like the Elvis reveal. He's
white? Only you'd have to have the camera moving in 18 directions on 45 cuts.
Man, beautiful. Love that movie.
You know what I thought was really cool this time that I caught Joey for the first time?
What's that?
That when they use the turrets on the hauler, that's like a really fucking cool controller. Did you see it? It's like he has like a thumb wheel that like spins the direction of them. It kind of looks like a plane. What do you call like the thruster on a plane? What is the name of that?
Oh, like the yoke?
Yeah. It's like that with like a thumb wheel, and that's what he uses to like spin the turrets and fire them. And I was like, oh, this thing looks really cool.
It was, do you remember Steel Battalion?
The game?
There was a game that like basically came with this
a
like,
giant mech
console.
controller. Yes. For Xbox.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't Mech Assault. It was only one game, but it had
Battalion.
like 100 buttons. I looked this up like a couple years ago. I wanted to buy one. They're outrageously expensive.
Like, it's the kind of thing where, like, when they added Flight Simulator to Game Pass, I was just like, do I spend, like, $200? Not get, like, a crazy flight thing, but I'm just like...
No, but $200 is, like, a basic
But, yeah, do I spend, like, a little bit of money and, like get sort of serious about this game? And I'm like, let me see if I play the game first. And I just basically never play the game. I'm like, glad I didn't spend $200 on a thing. But, like, it's the kind of thing where if you buy, like, not that I have it, but if you buy, like, a racing chair and, like, a steering wheel, like, you can use those for, like, most racing games. But, like, you buy the Steel Battalion controller, you buy the flight thing, and, like, it's one game. Like, you're locked into an ecosystem there where it's just, like, this is what you're playing.
Yeah.
Both Iggy Azalea and T-Pain was in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
As T-Pain. He exists
as T-Pain.
in the Fast and the Furious universe. T-Pain exists as a real musician.
Yes.
He exists as a real musician who can be hired as a DJ for private parties if you have a shit ton of money.
And also does not know that Ludacris is now a spy. In this world, Ludacris either does not exist or T-Pain cannot recognize him if he is dressed as Tej.
Correct. Well, we talked about that in Too Fast, where, like, Ludacris songs are in the movie, but it's not Tej singing them. So, like, there's another Ludacris in this universe.
Yeah, Tej just happens to look very much like Chris Ludacris Bridges.
Right.
Yes.
They explain away landing cars on roads with parachutes by just saying they have GPS.
And it doesn't work very well.
It's such a hand wave, and I love it.
No, but they like some of them like land in the woods and shit. I'm
Yes.
like how good is the GPS? It's not that good.
That was the bit I found out today. So apparently, I'm sure you guys know this. You've been talking about these movies for so long. I love the trivia bit that Universal had to pay a crap load of money to replant trees in the national park that they shot this in, because they crashed the cars into several trees while filming, ripping them up from the ground.
Dude, tree law is wild. I don't know if you guys have ever been into the tree thing. No, I'm not. That's not even a joke, man.
I'm not laughing at it being a joke. I'm laughing at the way you describe tree law being not a joke.
Tree law is very serious. And
tree law is intense, man.
Rachel put me on it. There's like a whole subreddit about it, and people just argue and fight about trees all the time. And there's like very serious tree law. Like, you can't cut leaves off a tree because you might like endanger a bird that only lives in one area. There's like a whole yes. So I bet they paid a buttload of money.
It was specifically the fact that where they were filming was apparently like a national park or at least like a protected area.
Yep.
That because they wound up like tearing up several trees while filming, they had to pay out the ass to have these things replanted.
Yeah, trees are like very expensive too. This is awesome. That's a really good. Thank you, Matt. I did not know that, and I appreciate you sharing. I'm going to share that with Rachel because she will find it very interesting.
I'm looking to see if I have any of the only other note that I have before we also didn't ask Matt his questions that are our vehicle questions. We'll do that now when we do the vehicle rundown. The only other note that I have is at the end of this movie. So Dom comes back to life, and then there's the Brian on the beach scene. But in between, we see Hobbs drop off Shaw in the prison, right? And they put him like deep in the belly of this bunker in like solitary confinement, like way the fuck away, right?
Yep.
He must have been on some good behavior, because by the time we see him again in Fate, he's basically in Gen Pop. Like, he's in still his own cell, but like he's just in the main hallway. You know what I mean? So like he goes from being like in the belly of the beast to being in around other criminals. So like, good job Deckard for like being
he's still in his own cell, and he's kind of like in the focal point, but he's not like deep in the basement.
Right, but like bunker. He's across the hallway from Hobbs, and here there is no across the hallway, right? Like, this is...
Yes, fair, yeah.
He had to have been volunteering for like certain work programs or whatever. Like, well, you didn't kill anybody while serving everyone lunch for the past 6 months, so we're gonna take you out of the Hannibal Lecter cell, right. And you can now be up around people.
So, Matt, what we've been doing this lap, because this lap is the planes, trains, but no automobiles lap. So in between Fast and Furious movies, we're watching movies that have a vehicle that's not a prominent vehicle that's not a car. So Joe and I have been cataloging the vehicles in these movies that are not cars. So we have a couple questions for you afterwards, but let's run through. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have between 5 and 9, depending on what's what.
Same. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Very early on, in the establishing shot of Tokyo, when Dong goes to Tokyo, we get a subway. It's above ground subway, the metro, yes. And there's also a motorcycle.
Okay.
We get the plane that they parachute the cars out of.
Yep.
My question to you, in that same
scene... If you have the same one... Okay.
Well, the same scene, there's the armored vehicles, which I'm not sure if they count or not.
I was gonna ask if you count the bus or not.
The hauler. I was gonna say the hauler, like spy racers. Mm-hmm. I think the hauler exists. Not the armored vehicles, but the hauler counts.
What about the bus in that scene? Or is that the same...
The hauler is like the bus. That's what I was talking about. I was just using the spy racers term.
From what I would imagine, the hauler looks like they took like a commercial bus, like a Greyhound bus, and like kit bashed it to be an armored vehicle.
But I think that's an interesting vehicle. That's not like a car. You don't like see one of those like you don't have like a military grade hauler that just like drives around. You know what I mean? So
because I was also thinking like in terms of like the other armored vehicles in that scene, like it's not like a tank in 6 where it's like this is clearly not a car. Like just cars with more like the demon love child as Dom says between this and that. Like that's still mostly a car, right?
Yep, yeah. But I think the hauler is its own thing.
The big question of the hour.
Next one up. Go ahead.
Do flying cars count as different kinds of vehicles?
No, I don't think so.
Because
they're not actually flying. They're just using a parachute.
Yeah, they're just being dropped. They're not technically flying.
They are doing the Buzz Lightyear falling with style.
Yes.
I have a better question, Joey. Mm-hmm. Next one I have in my list. Camels.
Oh.
They're not riding them, but they're walking them across the desert.
I don't think like a horse or a camel is a vehicle unless they're being used as a vehicle.
Maybe they were just tired.
I was going to say they were more being used as like just beasts of burden. Like they were carrying stuff for them, it seemed like.
Yeah, that's like a wagon. It's a wagon with a heart.
I did not write down the camels thing. That's a good question. It's an interesting question. Mose Jakande's in a helicopter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How about they spend time with Ramsey on a lakefront with no boats?
It's weird, right?
Very strange. There should have been at least one boat.
No boats and no jet skis.
Yeah.
There's also the Predator drone, which is an unmanned
drone. I counted. I think drone counts, even though it's not.
Though?
But there's not a person.
I would consider it more just like a drone. It's a robot. It's an item, but I would say a vehicle is something that a person can ride in or on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And by
that's fair.
By design, they're not to be used with people. Like people control them, right? But like.
Yeah, it's more of a really cool weapon.
In that scene that Matt mentioned earlier.
Do you have the deep cut that I do? Oh, no, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know if I have a deep cut.
In the drone scene.
No,
I have a deep cut one in the drone scene. At about 1 hour and 50 minutes into this
Oh, you made
movie.
a note of the time, okay.
Yeah, because I was thinking maybe you could use it for one of the pictures because it's fucking wild.
Okay.
An hour, 50 minutes into this, while the drone is chasing them, there is a forklift in the background.
Oh.
In one of the garages.
Is it being used?
I mean, it's like a split-second shot of a forklift, like in a garage that like somebody just had like tucked in there. So yes, it's usable, and I'm sure it was used, but not by them.
Would you guys consider the ambulance?
I have ambulance.
I wrote down ambulance. I'm not sure.
But ambulance should be referenced.
It should be at least brought up. But my question, this is something that we talk about next week with Walt Hickey. He has a definition, which we won't spoil because it's a good conversation on that episode. Is the cart that Brian slides around on...
I was going to say this one,
in the fight with Tony Jaa, a vehicle?
I would say no. Despite the fact that he winds up being on it and moving it, it is not designed for moving people.
I don't know. I think that if skateboard is, that is.
But skateboard is like, you could use a skateboard to like carry a box, but like the cart is 4 boxes. You know what I mean? Like,
It's rough. I could definitely see an argument made either way.
Yeah. That's all that I have. I don't have any other non-cars, I don't think. Ambulance, cart, predator drone, helicopter, flying cars, bus, plane,
hauler,
metro train, and
subway.
Motorcycle. Yeah.
You know what surprises me?
What?
At Race Wars, because I know that this was something from like the earlier movies, you don't have anyone riding around on like ATVs or anything like that. They used to be all over the place in those early movies too.
We don't get a ton of fun stuff in this one. I was thinking that as I was watching it, like jet skis, no scooters, no dirt bikes, none of like when they drop the planes out, there should be a dirt bike, right?
It's
like,
weird.
The cars.
It's weird to me that like with Race Wars, they're like, hey, we're gonna bring back this thing from the first movie, like a real throwback to an earlier movie. Like we still remember these movies, and they don't really nail it. Like they do, but they don't, like, it's not all out. Like they spend a lot of money to like go out in the desert and put a bunch of cars and a bunch of extras and everything out there, but like
and sponsor it.
Yeah,
but at the same time, it lost its charm. It doesn't have the same vibe.
No, I'm not saying
it's not about family.
Oh, you mean
anymore.
that like no? I'm saying like producers of the film are not like doing like. But you're saying maybe like that Race Wars as a whole has died a little
commercial.
bit, so they've kind of made it shittier.
I'm wondering if it's almost if it's an art imitating life sort of a thing, because
like
this
Burning Man.
This is now James Wan is trying to show you Race Wars because he wants to bring that nostalgia of this thing from the first movies happening. But as the guy who was never really involved with this series up until now, this is just his idea of what Race Wars would be, in the way that Race Wars in the movie is somebody else's idea of bringing Race Wars back when Dom's not the one involved.
I think it's just like a nod to like the everything on a long enough timeline becomes like super commercial, right? Like, I think it's more of that. Like, is Burning Man still the same? It's not.
Yeah, so like I was bummed because I was like, they didn't go all out, but maybe in your idea, they're not going all out because they're overthinking it, or they're thinking so deeply. They're like, no, like it kind of should be shitty.
It's Woodstock 99. The big thing that they're trying to do here is they want to make money rather than put on an event.
Yep. It's not like a bunch of kids came together and like broke into an airport that they're not allowed to be in.
Okay.
It's that it now is a
there's
funded,
dudes out here
ticketed,
selling bottles of water for $50.
Exactly. Yes.
Which, I mean, that water just tastes better. You gotta admit it.
It's Voss. It comes in a glass bottle. Come on, man.
All right, so Matt, we meant to ask you this at the beginning of the episode, and we got so caught up in like your rankings and your history and everything. But as this is the Planes, Trains, but No Automobiles lap, do you have a favorite movie that is either about a non-car or has a memorable chase scene with a vehicle other than a car?
Honestly, I think one of my favorites is the over-the-top motorcycle chase from Mission Impossible 2.
Oh.
Because it's just such a wonderfully batshit insane take on it for all of the John Woo-ness that they throw into it.
Interesting, because there are crazy motorcycle races later in those movies, but you're saying from number 2.
Yes, it's specifically because I like the fact that it is so different from everything else. It's one of the things I like about Mission Impossible 2 is that as a Mission Impossible movie, it's not great because there is a through line and a homogeny to a lot of it, and it just does not do that. And I think that's why it stands out to me, because it is one of the ones where it was like a dare to be different, despite the fact that it was literally only the second movie.
Yeah, okay.
What is the coolest, most interesting, or most memorable vehicle you have ever ridden in or driven that is not a car?
One of these times, Joe, they're going to be like, yeah, I was in outer space. I took one of the private Richard Branson Virgin Galactic.
Took one of the vomit comets.
Yeah.
One thing that definitely sticks with me is when I was like 8 or 9 years old, my family went on vacation and we did a hot air balloon ride out through Pennsylvania.
That's really cool.
That was awesome. I loved that.
Hot air balloons, helicopters, not for me.
Now, Matt, before we play our game, are you ready to find out which Fast and Furious character you are?
Oh my God, I've waited my whole life.
So Joe and I, very early in the podcast, found a personality quiz, like a J14 BuzzFeed style quiz. We're like, this sucks. We could do it better. We made our own quiz with 7 questions, 6 multiple choice answers per question. No wrong answers. You can either describe and like explain your answer or not. It's totally up to you. 7 questions, 6 answers per question. Are you ready?
Oh, let's do this.
Question number 1, how fast are you? Are you NASCAR, roller coaster, Lamborghini Murcielago, Toyota Prius, Vespa, or Razor scooter?
I'm going to go with roller coaster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question number 2, how furious are you? The Hulk, Kylo Ren, Christian Bale on that one movie set that one time, Mel Gibson, Charlie Brown, or Jack McBrayer?
I'm going to go Christian Bale. I'm not always one who will like blow up at people, but if I do, it is because they fucked up.
That's a good answer.
Okay. Yeah.
Your anger manifests in appropriate ways.
Mm.
We're having a barbecue. How are you helping? Are you on the grill? Are you saying grace? Are you kicking back with a beer? Are you babysitting? Are you being the entertainment? Or are you sneaking a snack?
Honestly, I'd probably be on grill.
Okay. Good. Important.
I like
helpful,
it, yeah.
Useful. Beneficial.
Very important.
You've got time to kill. What are you doing? Are you grabbing a bite, working on your car, hanging with friends, drinking a beer, working out, or just doing some work on your computer?
I'd say hanging with friends.
Question number 5, describe your wedding. I'm never getting married. It's just me and my partner. It's us and our families. It's a backyard country affair. Everyone I know is there. I don't remember.
I'd say backyard affair.
Matt, congratulations. You just won the lottery. What are you buying? Your own garage? A private plane? I'm gambling it all away. My childhood home? A fleet of cars? Or a new life?
I'm going to say... I'm tempted by the answer of a new life.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with that one. Just because it's so fluid that it could mean anything, really.
True.
Matt, the final question to answer it all, to solve it all here. What is your drink of choice? Belgian ale, Corona, something fruity, water, whatever's cheapest, or just, Joe's going to the bar, get me one of whatever you're having.
I'm going to go with something fruity.
Okay. You were one character until that very, very final question.
Oh, wow.
And then you changed to another. Oh, yeah, okay, we've had both of these characters before. I know for one we've had one, because the one you are is the same one I am. You are Mia Toretto.
Hell
Matt,
yeah.
family means everything to you, but people often mistake you for being meek or non-confrontational. You tend to take on a supporting role and let others handle the more exciting tasks, because it's more important to you to know that someone is watching over everyone else than to seek glory for yourself. Even so, you're not afraid to jump in the fray when your family's on the line and you drive like the wind blows. Does that at all sound like you?
That honestly does. I think that is very accurate.
Yeah, cool. I mean, that's the goal. The final thing to do before we pack it up and say goodbye is to play this Ain't No 10-Second Race, aka Boy Do We Have a Podcast for You.
Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Come and check out our show. Yeah.
So this is where you go on the website formerly known as Twitter, formerly known as the Bird app, and find any tweet from anyone tweeting about these movies, these actors, this franchise, whatever, and we tweet at them from our account, encouraging them to watch these movies. Before we get to this episode's picks, I'm going to review last episode, which we did Tokyo Drift with Matt Stewart's. I found Andrew Hodge at Andrew Hodge quote tweeting the New York Times Arts, which originally said, "A man in a wheelchair faked this ability to get close to the Mona Lisa before tossing a pastry at the glass, protecting the painting," officials said. And Andrew said, "The Mona Lisa got messed up a little bit. It's all good. Just like Romans in Fast and Furious Supercharged on the studio tour at Universal Studios." And we said, or like Han's car, the Mona Lisa, in Tokyo Drift. If you think F&F when you read news stories, boy, do we have a podcast for you. We have a like. It is, okay. It adds another click. But we got it from Simo, friend of the show, past guest of the show. So I got a like, but it was not a like that counts as a point. Sorry, no offense, Simo, but you're already in the family. We don't get points for you.
No.
Joe, you found Jazz Hart crying, tearing, welling up emoji at Kira Jazz, quote tweeting discussing film, saying first poster for Fast 10. And it's Dom clutching the cross necklace. And Jazz says, I miss when this movie was about racing. And then Shamart Blacktober said, friend, as the biggest FNF fan you'll probably ever meet, I have to tell you this franchise was never about racing. Aside from Tokyo Drift, racing was just a sideshow. The main plot of the movies were always about catching bad guys. And we said, we agree, and sometimes being bad guys as well. Who's your favorite bad guy? Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Joe, we tweeted at 2 different people, asked a direct question. Not even someone in our sphere liked it. Swing and a miss.
It happens to the best of us.
Then Matt found Toy Fu, me and the guys watching the latest Fast and Furious movie, and it was quote tweeting Star Trek characters saying, what the fuck is happening now? They went back and forth. And then Toy Fu says, quote, and okay, so they started as a gang of street racers playing to steal DVD players, and now they've been contacted by the NSA to locate stolen nuclear weapons on the moon, which they drove to. And we said, this is a great idea. Toy, do we have a podcast for you? And no, of course not.
Nothing.
So I got a like, but doesn't count. Swing and a miss, 0 for 3 last time.
Shitty at bat.
So, Matt, just know that, if you don't get points tonight, it's not your fault. This game should be easy. It's not easy.
And it's not.
All right. Joe, you sent 2 tweets. Are you playing one for charity and one for you?
I'm playing one for charity.
Which
and
one is you
me.
and which one's charity?
My tweet is going to be Skater Hater at SK8RH8RXX.
Okay.
Saw is like Fast and the Furious for horror movies. Both are epic and awesome.
Okay.
As fans of both, we couldn't agree more. Do you think Dom would be Jigsaw? Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Oh, wait, no. Do you think Dom would be Jigsaw or Mr. Nobody? Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Or wait, do you think Dom or Mr. Nobody would be Jigsaw? Which one would be Jigsaw? Sorry, that's what I was trying to convey, and I couldn't get it out of my mouth.
Perfect. And then please hit us with your charity tweet as well.
It's from Chainsaw Massacre at FinalDude78. Never feel ashamed of loving a horror movie others think is terrible. There are actual people existing in the world whose favorite movie franchise is The Fast and the Furious.
Couldn't be us.
Is that a backhanded compliment?
Yeah, it's just shitting on Fast and the Furious. But it was the nice opposite. It was like the inverse of the first tweet. So I would say yes, Shane, there's literally dozens of us. Boy, do we have a podcast for you.
There are tens of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it makes $1 billion every fucking movie.
Not for him, but
Yeah.
All right, Matt, please, you found a great one. Please read who it's from and then read the tweet aloud.
So I found a tweet from Portia Boyd Chapman at Portia Boyd. It said, I loved at Jason Momoa 6 in #FastX. The genie outfit, the scrunchie, the glasses on the chain like a grandma, painted nails, rings, and personality. He had me cracking up.
How would you like us to respond to this fine tweet?
That's a good question. I would say it would probably be something along the lines of, oh man, I'm bad at social media.
We're thinking about being Jason Momoa from Fast X for Halloween. What is your costume? Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Sorry, I'm just trying to throw questions out there because
no, it's fine. I get it.
Respond. So if you have a better thing, maybe that helped you steer. But
actually, I like the idea of the dressing as him for Halloween bit.
Okay,
be along the lines of something like, how much of this outfit can anyone build for Halloween just out of their closet?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. Yes, I like that.
If you can build this Halloween costume out of your closet, then boy, do we have a podcast for you.
Oh.
If you can build this outfit out of what you already own as a Halloween, already have in your closet as a Halloween costume into a Halloween costume, boy, do we have a podcast for you. I found a tweet from Laser Weber at Laser the Boy, which if his name is Laser, amazing. I'm watching the second Fast and Furious movie, and after watching Fast 10, ... well, I'll say it. It's slower and considerably less angry. There aren't even supervillains. The cars don't even fly. People got excited about a helicopter? Call me when you got a Megazord. And I'm going to say, a Megazord. Now you're talking. Boy, do we have a podcast for you.
Sounds good.
And I'd also like to correct him for one moment. They do fly a car in Too Fast, Too Furious. They ramp it into the back of a yacht.
That's true. I'm gonna reply and then I'm gonna say also they fly a car into a yacht.
Just so I can actually somebody.
Matt, thank you so much for joining us on this episode.
Thank you for joining us, Matt.
Guys, thank you so much for having me.
What would you like to plug?
To
Where can people find you? How do you want to be found? What have you got going on?
I mean, outside of every so often popping up on podcasts, such as some of the lovely ones you have on your network, the Jock and Nerd podcast every so often as well. I do have a backlog of, I think it's like 9 episodes of my own podcast that I get to maybe once a year, called the Ginger Geek Podcast. I am in the midst of putting together funny enough, I mentioned the movie earlier. I'm in the midst of putting together a audio drama adaptation of the movie Brick as a podcast that will be getting released next year.
That's really fun. I love Brick. That's awesome.
And beyond that, they can find me on Twitch as Matty DVO. It's just about usually on Tuesdays around 7:30 p.m. Eastern.
Very, very cool. So as this episode comes out on Tuesday, if you're listening on the main feed, go check out Twitch tonight at 7:30. Check them out. Joe, our next episode is one I mentioned earlier. It is Titanic featuring Walt Hickey. We already recorded that episode because Walt's a busy man with a busy promotion schedule, but we have got him for Titanic next week. We've also got a Life in the Fast Lane after that, and then a bonus episode, not a bonus episode, but instead of going back to the Fate of the Furious, we're taking a quick stop in between for a Halloween horror movie, a young Paul Walker in the film Monster in the Closet from 1986, which I'm very excited about. That episode comes out on Halloween, so get excited for that. We've also got bonus episodes out now or coming out soon about Space Camp, Shadow in the Cloud, The Right Stuff, and Megaforce. So if you're not a patron yet, what are you doing? Go over there for $1 a month at toofast2forever.com or more if you want to be more generous. But get all those bonus episodes. You got so much coming out this month. So much is lap. toofast2forever.com. And for all things Too Fast, Too Forever, go to cageclub.me, facebook.com/toofast2forever, or at toofast2forever, and all of your favorite and least favorite social media sites. Email us, family@cageclub.me. Check out our Patreon page, aforementioned, at toofast2forever.com. And also, before we go further, end the episode, but shout out to Cassie Wilson, Nick Burris, Alex Ellen, and Justin Kleiman, and Brian Rodriguez of High School Slumber Party.
Ooh.
Congratulations. Wes Hampton, Jerry Robinson, Dan the Duke, Hayden Renato, G. Donato, Michael McGann, Lane Middleton, Lindsay Lewandowski, Nate Milton of the Kings of Sport, Jason Rainey, Tom Price, Mike Gallier, Josh Buckley of Whole Lotta Wolves, Michael Moser, Christian Larson, Tara Newone, Aaron Willows, and Natalie Absolute, and Jessica Collins, a.k.a. Montez. Thank you all for supporting us at the $5 a month level or above. Your support and money and, love and familial obligations and whatever mean the world to us. So thank you all so very much. And come back next week for a movie called Titanic. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe too.
And that was Matt Delhauer, and we will tell you all about it
when we see you again.